Welcome to the Not Move Fantasy Sports Podcast. Today, me and Otis are going to be breaking down rounds 7 through 12, getting everybody ready. It's a big draft week. Like I said, I've already knocked out 2 drafts. Otis, I think you got 3, right, going on?
Yeah, we got 3 coming up. One just finished today.
All righty, so let's just get hot and heavy into things. 7th round, you're looking at like pick 73 through 84 overall. Guy that I really like here, and I got him in one league, and we're going to hit on the tight end position. It's going to be TJ Hawkinson. I'm big on TJ Hawkinson. I feel like JJ McCarthy is going to need an escape route with his passing. You know, he's going to need someone to check it down to, and I think TJ Hawkinson could be in line for a big season this year.
Yeah, and absolutely a big start at the beginning of the season without Jordan Addison. So he's going to definitely need that safety valve to get going in the offense.
Yep, this is why I have him top of the 7th. 74th overall picked, early 7th round. I have Stephon Diggs. I think Stephon Diggs, this is a good spot for Diggs. I think that Drake May is definitely going to take a step forward, and I like taking Stephon Diggs early in the 7th.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Stephon Diggs is a solid pick. He's a veteran on that New England offense. I know that Drake May is probably going to look his way a lot, considering the potential that he could have between the two. Another guy I like in the 7th round is Evan Ingram from the Broncos. We talked about this being probably a later round where you're looking at tight ends if you haven't gotten a Kittle or a Kelsey or a Hawkinson in this round. But if you haven't gotten a tight end, you know, these are the rounds you're going to look for that tight end. And Mark Andrews is another guy who's a question mark. We don't know what's going to go on with Isaiah Likely being injured early, but you know, he's another guy I'd look at here in the 7th round.
Man, I'm going to just work off what you said on the tight end position. Travis Kelce, right? Is Travis Kelce just a name value? He slimmed down a bunch. Is Travis Kelce going to go back to the Travis Kelce of past? Because this guy was a cheat code in fantasy before, you know? You were going to win them tight end matchup week to week. Now, Kelce's not quite the same guy, but you can still get good value from Travis Kelce. Plus, once you look at your team and your draft grade and stuff, when you see Travis Kelce, it looks good on paper. You know?
Yeah, I mean, I like Travis Kelce so much. I actually took him in the 5th round of my draft this afternoon. So no doubt, I feel like there's going to be a little bit of forcing Patrick Mahomes to get back in rhythm after having less than stellar seasons the last 2 seasons. So I feel like Travis Kelce without Rashee Rice being there is going to be the same thing as Hawkinson is for J.J. McCarthy, although Patrick Mahomes has much more playmaking ability that we've seen so far.
And a guy that I really like, I'm going to work off the Chief. Another Chief here is going to be Isaiah Pacheco, right? He's a starting running back. Obviously, he's coming back from that injury, so you have the injury concern. But getting Isaiah Pacheco here in the 7th, I feel like that's a great value.
Yeah, I like Isaiah Pacheco in the 7th round as value. When you think about what they had last year, had Pacheco not gotten hurt, he might have been pushing towards that 1,000-yard mark. Obviously, Kareem Hunt came in, took over the duties in the backfield until later in the season. So, you know, if you get Pacheco now, we'll be talking later about handcuffs and what have you. You know, Kareem Hunt might be a handcuff you might want to get.
Yeah, I'm going to stay on that running back position because you're still going to be drafting running backs for depth in the 7th round. Obviously, a lot of the good ones are going to be gone, and this is going to be one of those sleepers, right? And I see him moving up the charts. Tony Pollard is in line to have a big season, right? So this is we told everyone we're going to hit on sleepers. I really like Tony Pollard this year. I feel like he's starting to get drafted higher now that the later drafts are happening, and he's climbing up the boards. But I'm really high on Tony Pollard. I feel like he could really break out this year.
Yeah, I thought last year there was a lot of question marks around that backfield when they drafted Tajay Spears. You were thinking, oh, this is going to be a split backfield. Pollard's not going to get as much work as he did in Dallas. And it turns out he got as equally, if not more, work in the Titans offense last year.
At pick 79, I'm gonna hit back at quarterback, because this is when me and you are starting to like kind of look at that quarterback position, right? Because all the big
Yes.
names are already going off the board. Big name I like here is going to be Baker, right? If Baker is still here in the middle of the seventh, I'm definitely thinking about grabbing him here.
Yeah, I like Baker. I feel like his output is consistent enough to warrant this pick. You know, you're gonna see names up there that you might want to reach out for and grab. You know, a lot of people are high on Bo Nix. I don't know exactly how that's going to fit. I don't know if he's a 7th round pick. And other people are high on Brock Purdy with his 3,800 yards, even though he didn't have all the weapons he had last year.
Next guy I'm going to hit on is not a guy that I'm super high on. Actually, it's going to be the next two guys that I'm not super high on that I have going at 80, pick 80, 81, and that's going to be Deebo Samuel and Jerry Jeudy. Okay. I can see the name value, right? I can see why people like these guys, right? Especially Jerry Jeudy. He's a one. He went off in the Denver game last year. But again, you know how I feel about Jerry Jeudy. I'm not super happy, especially if he's going to be my 2. I like him at my 3. I like these guys at my third wide receiver spot. Like if I've already gotten 2 good wide receivers, I don't mind sticking Deebo Samuel or Jerry Jeudy in right here.
Yeah, and to go along with your pair of receivers, a couple running backs you might look at here: Jalen Warren, possibly, and Javonte Williams are 2 guys that you could possibly get here with starter value, not knowing if they're going to be able to put out the output, but they're your 3rd guy in that position.
And I'm gonna switch back to the wide receiver position, because this is when I think guys are looking at their 2s and 3s for wide receivers. And the 2 guys that I like, the first guy that I like that I don't know if you might consider him a sleeper. It's going to be Khalil Shakir, right? It's going to be Josh Allen. It was one of Josh Allen's favorite targets last year. He led in a lot of catches last year. So I like Khalil Shakir. The other guy that I'm going to hit on my sleeper that I really think is a good sleeper here, and I wouldn't mind drafting in the 7th round, let alone the bottom of the 7th round, is Emeka Egbuka, right?
Yeah. Oh, I love Shakir. I loved his output. Obviously, big sleeper last year. Didn't know what that offense was going to look like. We thought Keon Coleman was going to be the guy who would come through there after the departure of Diggs. But Khalil Shakir, I love the pick here in the 7th round. He actually went in the end of the 6th round in the league I drafted today. And at the end of that, I also don't mind, possibly taking a flyer on Michael Pittman here. Daniel Jones has been declared the starter. So it's going to be hard to figure out, where it is that this offense is going to go. We know it's going to run through Jonathan Taylor, but obviously, they may be behind and have to pass. And I think Pittman's the guy.
All right, we are going to be starting the 8th round. So seventh round is done. Top of the 8th round. I'm going to start this off with a pair of receivers that are on the same team, and I have them valued the same in my rankings, and that's Matthew Golden and Jaden Reed. All right, and if I get either of these 2, I would be happy, because I feel like both of them have a high upside, and I feel like they could have a big impact this season with Green Bay.
Yeah, I feel like Golden is really going to be a guy they can depend on. We've had a lot of question marks around all 5 of those receivers that were on the team last year. Wicks, Reed, Watson, possibly Tucker Kraft being a guy who could have some input. But this season, I feel like Matthew Golden, they went out and got one in the 1st round, right? You're not doing that if you're not looking to upgrade your pass game. So I really like Golden this season.
And I see your Pittman, and I'm going to raise you a Josh Downs here, right?
Okay.
Yeah, I like Josh Downs. I feel like he definitely gets undervalued, and I wouldn't mind taking him in the 8th round. I think Josh Downs definitely he's going to be a boomer bust guy, right? He's going to have those weeks where he has huge weeks, and then he's going to have those weeks where he doesn't do anything, right? But if he's going to be a flex option, if I'm going to be rotating him out during bye weeks, I don't mind having Josh Downs.
Yeah. Speaking of Josh just sent in he said, can you rate my 12-man PPR? Burrow, Pollard, Aaron Jones, Jordan Mason. So he handcuffed. Amon-Ra St. Brown, BTJ, Laporta, JSN. That's a solid receiving core. I can tell you that right now.
Oh, yeah, I like
Eagles defense. Love the kicker pick. We'll talk about kickers later, but Aubrey kicking for 60, 70 yards. I got him in my draft in the 10th round. I went early and got him.
So he had Laporta so he had Laporta. Who did he have? The two guys from the Lions? He had Laporta and
Amon-Ra.
So I normally don't like having two guys on the same team unless it's quarterback and wide receiver or a quarterback and tight end. I don't mind, I told you before in the past, I like matching them, combining them. But it's tough when you get guys on the same team because you're going to get eaten up by bye weeks. Whether you want to just take the L on bye weeks, that's fine, if your team's stacked enough to withstand that. But normally I won't do that unless it's a quarterback wide receiver combo. But I mean, as a team as a whole, I like this team. Burrow, we know what Burrow's about. We just went over Pollard. I think you got to still at Pollard. The Mason Jones combo, way to handcuff. One of those guys is definitely going to end up being the feature back or the workhorse. You're just hoping they don't split carries. Amon-Ra, we know what Amon-Ra is. Amon-Ra is a yak merchant, right? He's the slant merchant, and he always gets points. Laporta, I think he has a bounce back year. I love JSN. Eagles D and Aubrey. I think this team, if I had to rate this team, I would probably rate this team like a B plus A.
Yeah, I agree. B plus A is definitely where I would rank this team. Obviously, the Pollard thing was a deep. I mean, he obviously targeted receivers early on in his draft with the combination that he has: JSN, BTJ, and Amon-Ra, and then slept on the Pollard, Aaron Jones, Mason thing here. So the other question we have is, are you able to give thoughts on a fantasy football dynasty trade? So dynasty is a little bit different than keepers, where you keep your team and then you're drafting rookies the entire time after your first draft, unless you waiver wire someone. So if you give us the trade, then I would be able to give you some thoughts on that, Bryce, Big Rice Ball. He said, what about a redraft team for you guys to get thoughts on later? I've never done a redraft. Have you done a redraft team?
No, I haven't. So that's very interesting that both of us have not done that, because I'm in multiple leagues. Like this year, I'm in 4 leagues. Last year, I was only in 3. But I'm getting into some of the crazier stuff now, right? Because they have the Vampire League, they have Dynasty Leagues. I'm starting to explore a little bit more options out there because a lot of people are starting to bring those offers to me. Before, this wasn't a thing in fantasy, right? You had a standard and you had a PPR. Now fantasy is getting crazy, right? I'm in a super flex keeper league, right? So I get to keep 2 keepers every year, and one has to be a quarterback and one of them has to be a skill position, right? And it doesn't necessarily have to be a skill position. You could keep we have IDPs even, and we have defenses that score high. So we've bumped up our settings so that our defense score higher and our quarterback score double. So we have a double quarterback super flex keeper league with IDPs.
Right. Yeah.
So
you got all the
my
alphabets
league
in
is
there.
crazy scoring. My league scores up to 300s. The highest score I think was 311 points, right? And how the IDPs work is you get, in my particular league, you get to pick 1 linebacker, 1 defensive lineman, and 1 corner or defensive back, right? And you get a point per tackle, right? You get a half point if you get a half tackle. So they even score half points. So here comes the percentages, right? And then you can get 2 points for a sack, and then it's 3 points for interception. Now, if you get a pick 6, you get the 6 plus the 3. So you get 9 points for a pick 6.
Interesting. I mean, there's plenty of ways now that these people have developed over time to be able to get the value out of different types of leagues. I've never played in a league with individual defensive players. I have played in a league with 2 quarterbacks. He put his trade in. So the trade was, let's see. It was Ja'Cory Krosky, Merritt, and Ibuka for Garrett Wilson and a 2026 third-round pick.
Wow. Wow. So
Wow.
I'm guessing what side was he the Krosky Merritt side, I'm guessing?
I'm not sure. I would
Okay.
guess so.
Well, maybe that's even better that we don't know. What side
Yeah.
do you like more?
Yeah, I like the Krosky Merritt Ibuka more than I like the Garrett Wilson 2026 third-round pick. Yeah, see, here it is. Yep.
Yep.
So he has a super flex PPR as well. JD5, Bucky, Hampton, CD Lamb, DJ Moore, Tyler Warren, Sutton, T Law, RJ Harvey, Dak, ETN, Jerome Ford, Mason, Demario Douglas, and Brenton Strange. Demario Douglas, we're gonna hit on a little bit later. That's a solid team, though. I mean, I wonder how many people are in that league. There's got to be. It can't be more than 10.
That's what I'm saying. To have a stacked team like that, I don't think
Yeah.
that's a 12-team league. I think that's a 10-team league.
Yeah.
And let's just think, because we think it is. If that's a 10-team league, I like that team.
Yeah. Yeah. I really like, we talked about earlier, RJ Harvey. I like him as a rookie this year. And I also like Marion Hampton, which we already hit on earlier. And I think it was episode 2 or last episode. JD5 questions. We'll see what happens. But your receiving core, CD Lamb, DJ Moore, Sutton. Geez, that's pretty good.
Especially if this is a PPR. Did he say it was? Yeah, it's a PPR.
Yeah, PPR, yeah.
Your wide receiver core is good.
Oh, he said that's a 12-team league.
12
wow.
Team. Okay.
Wow.
I'm gonna give you an A plus draft grade then. A plus draft grade then. You know what I mean? All right. So I guess
sleeper tight end. That was Brenton Strange. That's a sleeper tight end I like too.
Yep. I don't know. I'm up and down on him. He's gonna be good, I think, right? We don't know. I guess we'll continue on our list. We're on the middle. Well, we're early 8th round still. And quarterbacks, if you want to go for a quarterback here, there's 2 quarterbacks that I like here that are like in the upper part of the 8th round, and that's going to be Justin Herbert and Kyler Murray. Okay. I think that you can still get good value here in the 8th round at quarterback. Me and you both like to wait on quarterbacks. If I have Kyler Murray or Justin Herbert here, I like my team. I don't need a Josh Allen. I don't need a Lamar. I would rather stack up on wide receivers and running backs or an elite tight end than reach. You know what I mean, for a quarterback. So these are 2 guys that I like, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I love Justin Herbert. I think that based on the idea of him having a better run game, even though they're minus the left tackle, who got hurt, I still feel like, Jim Harbaugh commits to the run. Play action pass is going to be huge for him. So I like Justin Herbert here. And Kyler Murray, I'm kind of in the middle with him. Obviously he gives you that run game, but I don't know how much he's going to give you in the pass game. I feel like a lot of people are high on the output of Marvin Harrison Jr. this year. So if that's the case, you're talking about a correlation of Kyler Murray having a larger output as well.
Yep. Next guy I'm going to hit on that I have in the middle of the 8th round that I think is a sleeper is Ricky Purcell, right? I think that this is your guy, right? This is your guy from the Niners. I got him last night in my league. He was my wide receiver 3, and I like it. I got him, and I have Tet McMillan, and I think I'm going to start Tet, but to see what Ricky does. But eventually, I mean, Ricky, if he has this upside, because I consider him a sleeper, and this is why I took him last night, I think that he could possibly be my wide receiver 3, but we're going to have to see how it goes.
Yeah, I mean, Pearsall in the offense is going to be the guy who takes over for Deebo Samuel's role, despite him not really carrying the ball as much as Deebo did in the wide back situation that happened in Deebo's early production. Pearsall is going to be the guy that's going to be he's going to be the guy that gets behind the linebacker, getting those slants and taking them, to the next level. I think that Pearsall is a solid pick here. Another guy I like in the 8th round here is Dak Prescott, believe it or not. I think that if you get Dak Prescott in the 8th round, and you can get a guy later on, you're still at the bottom end of quarterbacks in the top 15, top 10. So I like Dak in this position here.
All right. So, yeah. So I like your Dak pick here. I think Dak is good value here in the eighth. The other guy, quarterback that I like here is my guy, Bo Nix. All right. That's the same thing with JD5. Like when I was looking at his team, is the sophomore slump incoming, right? This is the only thing that worries me a little bit. But the guy was still solid last year. I like Bo Nix. This is where I have my set of Broncos. I have Bo Nix and Evan Ingram here at the bottom of the eighth. Those are the two guys that I was looking at for my Broncos. The other guys that I was looking at here at the bottom of the eighth is Travis Etienne and Caleb Williams. I'm not confident with either of these guys, but this is kind of what their draft value is.
Yeah. I mean, we don't really know exactly where these teams are going to fall as far as having, offensive outputs. Caleb Williams, new offense coordinator. We saw what he did with Jared Goff. So there is some big upside here. If he can get, a quarter better than what he did last year, I feel like he's taken a step forward. I don't know if this is the year or next year is going to be the year that could be the prove it year for Caleb Williams. So I don't mind taking it at the bottom of the eighth round. That's not a terrible pick. Travis Etienne is like, we don't know what his real, is he going to be the feature back? I mean, you got Tank Bigsby. They got that rookie Bashaw Tootin, which we'll talk about later on with our sleepers. And so are they trying to phase him out, or are they keeping him in that offense?
Right. Top of the ninth, right? So closed out the eighth round, top of the ninth. The very first pick in the ninth round, the guy that I like here is your guy. It's going to be Glock Purdy, right? I think Brock. I think Brock is he's solid. I think he's still solid. I would not mind having Brock Purdy be my starting quarterback. I've waited, right? I've waited till the ninth round to draft a quarterback because I've stacked up on all the other positions. I like Brock Purdy as my starting quarterback personally.
Yeah, I mean, he was my keeper in the 10th round of the league I just drafted in today. And I made a trade for that last year at the end of the year. But the thing about Brock Purdy is you're going to see production no matter what. His reads are good. The problem I have is we have a lot of injuries in that receiving core to start the year. So you don't have any Brandon Ayuk. Ricky Pearsall's hurt but not out. You're looking at Sky Moore, who just came into the team last week, is going to be a starter. So, like I said to you guys before, George Kittle going to be a huge upside in the beginning of the year, especially. But as you get into those runs of playoffs, you're talking about, the right timing of teams getting hot. That's possibly when you could see, possibly weeks 6 through 8, where you're going to see a real uptick in Brock Purdy's production.
All right, next couple names. So this is, you had named them earlier. Next guys I have on my list was Mark Andrews and Dak Prescott. So we kind of had them ranked around the same. You valued Dak a little bit higher than I did, and Mark Andrews a little bit higher than I did. But hey, this is why we do the show, right? So we can talk about it, and we're not too far off there, right? You had him ranked a little bit higher than me. Same with Evan Ingram. You had him ranked a little bit higher, but we're kind of in the same range here.
Yeah. And I feel like, if we're a half a round off, we're not that far off.
Yeah, exactly.
And you got to think about it when you're drafting in your league. There's people that are going to take chances like that, and get guys early. I mean, a guy that we thought was a sleeper in the beginning and maybe in rounds 3 or 4 has now become a second or third round for sure. And that's Travion Henderson, right? Travion Henderson has proved to be probably the starting back now in New England. So, the landscape of your picks can change, over time. We know that.
So in my draft last night, in this particular area that we're at in the draft, this is where my first defense went off the board. And I don't know if it's because I'm from Denver and the guy that drafted him is actually a Raiders fan. So, and lives here, but the Denver's D is who went here in my league. I don't draft defenses early too. I don't know. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I'm not a I mean, in the draft I did today, I was just looking at the first one off the board was in the 12th round.
Yeah.
And that was the Eagles. And then there was 20 picks before the next one went off the board. So if you're going to go with a defense, the Broncos were actually the second defense taken off the board. Then it was the Ravens, the Steelers, and the Vikings.
And a lot of mocks I did, the Denver Broncos went first, I've noticed.
Yeah. I mean, I am playing with a bunch of guys who are from the Philadelphia area. So I'd assume that's probably
maybe
why.
This is why, yeah.
Right, but not I don't know about the 9th round. I don't know about that.
But the Eagles D is solid. So I mean, it's not a super homer pick. Again, I feel like if you're going defense this early, that's crazy. Unless it's like my league, right? So defenses score more. So that's why they're valued a little bit higher. I still don't draft them this high. Like I literally took a third to last pick. I got Miami, or I got Minnesota.
Bryce said he picked the 49ers in the last round. You know, the 49ers in the last round isn't bad at all. Number one, they had the softest schedule. That's number one, at least on paper until they start, right? Number two, they have about 6 new starters on that defense. Granted, Robert Saleh's coming back. Hopefully he can get these guys acclimated to his defense right away. But you know, defenses in general, I feel like you're kind of after. That's the comment I was reading. You're kind of after, you know, like rounds 11 is where you start to see guys usually take defenses.
All right. Next pick here, and we're still kind of in the top half of the 9th round. I took my tight end here, right? I got David Njoku, right? I like David Njoku. I don't know if you'd really consider him a sleeper, but he's not that top tier tight end. But I feel like he has that upside to be that. And he was really good last year, and this is why I've been keying him in a lot of drafts. And I try not to draft super similar in each draft that I did, but I have this guy in 2 leagues, and that's how high I am on David Njoku.
Yeah, I like David Njoku. You know, Joe Flacco was named the starter last week. So I don't have a problem with that idea. He's the one who was with Mark Andrews when he started out, you know, pretty good. So I don't feel like Njoku is a bad pick here.
All right, so now we're in the 100th pick overall, you know, middle of the 9th round. Another quarterback.
Cool. I hope that's not a sign that this quarterback's going to choke.
Yeah. Maybe that's why I did this, right? Because the next guy I was talking about is Jared Goff. That was no fun. I didn't do it on purpose either. That was literally a cough that I had, and I did not do that on purpose. Jared Goff, wow, that was horrible timing for him, and I apologize to Jared Goff, but next guy is Jared Goff. Wow, I can't believe that happened.
Yeah, question marks surrounding Jared Goff, not the weapons, the offense itself. Are we going to see the same output we saw with Ben Johnson? Are they going to use the run game and play action the same way? Obviously he knows how to throw the football. So I don't have a problem with picking Jared Goff here.
All right. Next couple guys I have on my big board is going to be Zach Charbonnet, and it's going to be Keon Coleman. Is Keon Coleman going to take that next step, right? He was supposed to be the favorite target, and Josh Allen last year, he spread that ball around. All the receivers kind of got an even distributed piece to the pie, right? I think Khalil Shakir, arguably, it was 1 and Coleman was 2. But I don't mind drafting Keon Coleman here. And then Zach Charbonnet, right? Zach Charbonnet is a good handcuff if you do get Kenneth Walker. I do like Charbonnet and what we saw from him at the end of last year. He was big for the Seahawks. So I do like Charbonnet, and I wouldn't mind. You know, at this point, your team's starting to get rounded up, and you're looking for depth and handcuffs. So if you did grab Kenneth Walker early, maybe you reach a little bit on Charbonnet here in the middle of the 9th.
Yeah, and speaking of handcuffs, there's a couple of handcuffs I like here as well. Brian Robinson Jr., obviously the now 49er, handcuffed to Christian McCaffrey. And the other guy I like is Tank Bigsby, because I feel like there's going to be a more shared backfield for this Jacksonville offense. um, I think that when we talk about, younger guys, we talked about Emeka Buka. I feel like, there's no problem here if we talk about Colston Loveland as a rookie tight end in that offense. This is a guy you could really wait on. In a lot of leagues, I've seen Colston Loveland and then Tyler Warren, or the other way around, Tyler Warren and then Colston Loveland, but somewhere between the 9th and 10th rounds.
And personally, like when I drafted, so last year I was able to hit on Lad McConkey. I was able to hit on Malik Neighbors. I got them both late. I got BTJ. And this is why I made it to the championship round, because those rookies panned out, right? I don't mind taking a flyer on these tight ends, these rookie tight ends, because they were solid in college, right? And I mean, when you're getting them this late in the 9th round, I feel like why not take a shot on a rookie, right? Especially at a rookie tight end that might, be that escape valve for a quarterback, especially a young quarterback. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, and then when you look at it in Ben Johnson's offense, Laporta was a guy that his rookie year, it was unbelievable. I mean, I thought Laporta was going to shoot up draft boards and possibly be in the top 10, as far as tight ends go immediately. Yeah, Salah being back is definitely a huge plus.
Another tight end I want to hit on here that I like with those other two pair of rookies that you hit on that are potential sleepers is a guy I had last year in Tucker Kraft. Now, I picked up Tucker Kraft in free agency last year, and he was solid for me. I had a pretty stacked tight end core already, but I picked up Tucker Kraft, and he ended up being my starter.
Yeah, that's awesome to be able to get finds like that. A guy I also like later on here that's a rookie is Jaden Higgins from Houston.
Okay.
I know that they have Christian Kirk and Nico Collins, but I mean, if you look at it, no one thought Tank Dell was going to do anything, and he was the third receiver, and he became that year before he got hurt. He became the guy that everybody looked to, especially with the injuries in that receiving core.
And we were almost dead on, because at 106, I had Colston Loveland, so we were just a couple picks apart on that one. Next quarterback I have is Drake May here. I noticed that the guys in my league, when they have gone wide receiver, running back, tight end heavy, and they've waited on a quarterback, a lot of them ended up getting Drake May as their quarterback, right? It's a little risky, but I feel a little bit more confident in like a Drake May than I would like a JJ McCarthy, right? Because we've had more of a sample size. Same with Michael Penix, right? We've had more of a sample size. We don't know what JJ is yet. And I feel confident if I had to draft a quarterback super late and I waited too long and all these other names are off the board, I think I'm gonna probably get Drake May here.
Yeah, I like Drake May. I also like Jordan Love here. We already talked about, the offense changing possibly because of, the addition of Matthew Golden. So, Drake May, Jordan Love, another guy I really like, when we talk about possibly getting in the offense, a guy who went back to Minnesota, Adam Thielen. Solid pick here. Not too bad considering that he knows the offense. We know that Kevin O'Connell is, a quarterback whisperer at this point. I mean, he's had production out of multiple quarterbacks, first with Cousins and now Sam Darnold. And then now we got J.J. McCarthy. So even if you're waiting on J.J. McCarthy, Adam Thielen might be a guy you might want to pick up right here in the late 8th round or early 9th.
Other guy I like here is quarterback-wise is going to be C.J. Stroud, right? Since we already hit on Drake May and Jordan Love, C.J. Stroud's not a bad pick to lead the charge either, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think C.J. Stroud, they added weapons. Speaking of the Houston Texans, we need to address the idea of Joe Mixon possibly not being in the lineup for a while. There was a tweet out from the GM or from a reporter to the GM asking about Joe Mixon's availability week 1. And he said he can't even comment on the overall availability of him throughout the season. They picked up Nick Chubb. So, we have to figure out what's going to happen in that situation. Fantasy owners are going to have to wait for Joe Mixon if you've already drafted him.
Yep, exactly. That's why it sucks to draft early, right? This is literally when all the drafts happen, is this weekend. And then since it's a holiday weekend, right? A lot of drafts tomorrow too. So I'm glad that we're finishing up our recap of our drafts, and we can kind of help everybody out that hasn't drafted and are drafting either later tonight or early tomorrow or any day tomorrow. The other guys that I like here are Ramondre Stevens, and I like Cam Scatabo here. So we're in the top of the 10th now, by the way.
Yeah. So top of the 10th round, like those two running backs. Also like two rookies that got drafted by the same team. So I like Dylan Sampson and I like Quinshon Judkins. I just feel like those are guys that, if you get one of those guys, one of them is going to be the guy, right? Who's it going to be out of those two that I like in this 10th round?
Yeah, I had Judkins going right after you said that. So we're literally 1 to 2 picks off with our rankings, individual rankings here. Jaden Higgins. This is where I have Jaden Higgins next.
Okay.
Yep, I have him like early 10th. And then I also have Darnell Mooney here, right? He's got the injuries, but dude was explosive last year, right? He was a little bit of a sleeper in my opinion. And if he can repeat what he did last year, we're in the 10th round. You're going to have to take some flyers on guys, right? This is when you're going to have to get the Judkins with legal issues. It looks like that's all cleared up, but is he going, there's a lot of what ifs here, right? Is Darnell Mooney going to do what he did last year? Is he going to be that guy that he was last year? I don't mind taking a little bit of a flyer on some of these guys here. The other guy I wanted to hit on that you're going to have to take a flyer on that's injured right here is Brandon Ayuk.
Absolutely. Right on point here. I feel like Brandon Ayuk is a solid pick in the 10th round. He should probably be your 4th receiver at this point.
Yeah.
Maybe even 5th, depending on your philosophy. And Ayuk, if all comes back, and he comes back they're talking about between the 6th and the 10th week of the season. I mean, 10th week is really, really late, but and you would be able to figure out a few things by then, but he's a number 1 on that team when returning, and he's healthy. Another guy who's going to be out in the beginning, I think you could take now, is Jordan Addison. Jordan Addison is, suspended the beginning of the season. So, we're looking at taking flyers. These guys are flyers because they're abbreviated seasons.
And you have to take risks, right? Rashid Rice, Jordan Addison, like we know they're going to be suspended, right? Obviously, Rashid Rice, this is 6 games. Addison's is only 3. If you can build a strong enough roster to where you can stash these guys, man, when they come back, your team is going to be fire, right?
Yeah, I mean, and most leagues have an IR position, so that Brandon Ayuk pick is going to be an IR pick. You're going to put him right on the IR. He's at least there till week 6, which means you're going to have to eye a free agent waiver later on after your draft is over.
Yep. Another guy I like here is a rookie, and it's Luther Burton.
Yeah, I feel like Luther Burton is possibly the most slept on receiver, one of the quickest receivers in the draft. And I feel like that offense is really going to be good for him.
So this is technically, like I said, I'm just trying to hit on like some of my sleepers at this point.
Yep.
Obviously, some of the guys that are suspended, we know what they are. They're already proven. When you are gambling on rookies like a Luther Burton, like you don't know. And if you hit on them, your team can win a championship, right? But it's a lot of what ifs. We don't know what Luther Burton's going to be, right? We don't know. There's going to be a lot of mouths to feed in that offense. So, these are the guys, some of these rookies that I like taking risks on, and Luther Burton's one of them.
Yeah, and again, we talked about handcuffing. So handcuffing Tajay Spears with Tony Pollard here in the 10th round. Jordan Mason, we talked about already. Another guy you can handcuff is Rachaad White with Bucky Irving. So, plenty of things to go think about and consider when you're drafting in these later rounds, rounds 10 through 17 or so.
Yep. And I'm going to match you on one of them, and that's the ETN Bigsby combo, right? So Tank Bigsby, right? So you're probably could get both of these guys late. If you have already drafted ETN, I would look at Bigsby in the 10th, or vice versa, right? If you want to go and get ETN now and then maybe go right back around when it comes and snakes back to you and then get Tank Bigsby here, it's not bad, right? It's because someone is going to get a bulk of those carries. I don't usually like split backfields. Obviously, I want workhorse running backs, but you got to take a flyer sometimes. And sometimes if you match an ETN with a Bigsby, it might turn out not too bad for you, especially if
Yeah.
you've waited on running backs.
Early on, obviously, in the fantasy draft when it was online, I had gotten Fred Taylor, and then I got Maurice Jones-Drew.
Yeah,
his rookie season, and he actually won the fantasy draft for me that year because I was able to keep him the whole year, and eventually he just blew up after Fred Taylor got hurt.
Yeah, exactly. We're at the end of the 10th, top of the 11th. I'm going to go with a pair of tight ends here. This is obviously when I personally start looking at tight ends. I don't like to usually reach too high, but if you're looking at tight ends in the bottom of the 10th, early 11th, I like Jake Ferguson here, and I also like Dalton Kincaid here.
Yeah, right on with both of those. When you talk about Jake Ferguson's output, now that you have George Pickens on the outside, the safety's going to have to choose at some point on who they're going to take on that over-the-top route, whether it's Pickens or it's Ferguson down the seam. And I feel like the addition of Pickens, while it sounds like, well, that's another mouth to feed in that offense, takes away from the defense's ability to cover a guy like Jake Ferguson.
All right. Top of the 11th. Again, this is where I had Jordan Love. I don't mind. I'll reach a little bit higher than this 11th round for Jordan Love.
Mm-hmm.
It's just this was my initial rankings.
Yeah.
And then I have JJ McCarthy. Now, like I told you, those other three quarterbacks that we had talked about, I feel a lot more confident in them than I do JJ McCarthy. And I mean, God, he could be good, right? That offense, look at how explosive, look at all the playmakers he has on that offense. Like, man, it's such a gamble, though. You know what I mean? This is the only thing with JJ.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, when you talk about these two quarterbacks, with McCarthy, and if you're uncomfortable with a new quarterback, are you going to be equally uncomfortable taking Matthew Stafford with his back situation that's going on, right? Like, this is a guy who, had he not had an injury, you're possibly drafting him in that 9th round. We're 2 rounds later almost, and we're considering, is Matthew Stafford worth the money in the 11th round with JJ McCarthy?
It's crazy, right? Because this guy's arguably a top 5 quarterback in the league, but there's that health worry. This is when guys are banged up and you really have to take a flyer, and Stafford's drastically falling down these draft boards.
Yeah. Let me check real quick on my my draft is today, and I'm pretty sure he wasn't. Let's see, Herbert, McCarthy went, and then Stafford went 4 picks later.
Wow. So, okay. So he's getting valued with JJ McCarthy. This is crazy.
Right. McCarthy was picked in the 12th round. Stafford picked in the 13th round.
Wow. Crazy work. All right. A couple other guys that I see here in the 11th round. You might take a flyer on Keenan Allen, right?
Yeah.
He's not what he once was, right? Obviously, he's not as good as he once was, but he's going back to a familiar, place, and he could give you good points, in a fantasy output.
Yeah. And a guy, along with Keenan Allen, a guy who I like, who's in a not exactly great situation, but could possibly give you about 800 yards and 5 touchdowns, is Rashid Shaheed from New Orleans.
Yeah, I actually, looks like I skipped past him because I had him in the 10th too.
Yeah. I mean, but the 10th or 11th round is not a terrible place for him.
Yeah.
I mean, he's put out some good numbers, in a few weeks, spot numbers, obviously. But, Rashid Shaheed, along with Keenan Allen, probably a good pick here.
Yeah. You need another tight end. I like Dallas Goedert here in the middle of the 11th round.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I feel like, Dallas Goedert, and then, Jonnu Smith is another guy you could possibly look at drafting here. And the thing is that they're not good. These are not tight ends who are going to get you, 700-800 yards a season. I mean, Jonnu Smith had a phenomenal year last year, right? And the Steelers traded for him. I don't know that he's going to have that same output this season.
And then in the 126th, 127th overall, which is middle of the 11th round, I have two guys from the same team, right? And they're both running backs, and they're both Cowboys running backs, right? If I had to pick between Javonte and Jaden Blue, I think I'm going to take Jaden Blue.
Yeah, I like Jaden Blue in the late rounds here. I have him as one of my better deep sleepers. I just feel like once he gets a feel for that offense, he's going to be the guy they elevate to the number 2 pretty quickly. So I feel like Jaden Blue is definitely the better pick out of the 2.
Yep. All right. Next couple guys I have Rashad Bateman going towards the end of the 11th. He's a solid number 2. Boomer bust. I mean, nothing too crazy to write home about with him. He's either going to have a really good week or he's going to have a really bad week. He's going to have some weeks where he gives you 3 to 4 points. I mean, can't really hype him up too much. The other guy that I think is definitely a sleeper, and that's going to be running back Braylon Allen, right?
Yeah.
So, he really came on last year, and I thought definitely he was going to take Breece Hall's job. And, I don't know what the output is going to be. I don't know what the Jets are going to be. I know they're going to try to run the ball, and, it's worth a late flyer. We're in the late 11th round. It's worth a flyer.
Yeah, I feel like when we talk about, Braylon Allen, like you said, he had flashes last season. Breece Hall, question mark with health,
Yep.
After that initial first season, obviously some good output here. When we talk about the idea of having a solid choice to handcuff, probably the best choice.
And like I said, a handcuff, right? That's what you're going to get out of Allen. This is the 130th overall. This is where I had Dylan Sampson. I also have Marvin Mims and Ray Davis here, right? So, Marvin Mims, man, that's a crowded wide receiver room. This is just kind of where I valued him. But this is where I Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
All right.
Technical difficulties.
Little technical difficulties there. So I was talking about possibly handcuffing, Trey Benson with Connor. I was talking about Ray Davis with James Cook, and another guy is Marshawn Lloyd with Josh Jacobs.
Yeah. So now we're at the top of the 12th. this is like you said. I have Trey Benson, I have Demario Davis here, and I also have Austin Eckler here. Right
Yeah,
now,
Demario Douglas, I love A-Train, by the way.
do you?
Demario
Yeah.
Douglas, I really feel like with Stephon Diggs, in that offense, I feel like there's going to be some real output for Demario Douglas. And he already shown that he could do that with a few week bursts early on. So I don't mind taking him here in the 12th.
Yep. Like I said, so then you don't know who you're going to take out of that that Washington Commanders backfield, right? So Austin Eckler is definitely like right here on my list. He's you don't know who's going to be the lead back there, so I don't mind taking Austin Eckler here, and then we're going to hit on the guy that we really wanted to talk about that is really going to be slept on, and we don't know what his draft value is, and that's Nick Chubb.
Yeah, yeah, Chubb, a guy who got picked in the bottom of the 11th round in my league. So right here in the top of the 12th, not very far of stretch. And at the end of the day, he's the guy that's going to start. Dameon Pierce coming behind him. Dameon Pierce was already a starter in this offense prior. So, that could be a real shared backfield, the workload being split, 50-50 or 55-45.
Yep. A couple other names I have right here in the middle of the 12th is going to be Najee Harris and Joshua Palmer, right?
Yeah.
And
I spoke about Najee being a handcuff.
Right.
Josh Palmer, you like Josh Palmer.
I do. I think that he can fit right in. That's why it's so difficult. Like, that's why these guys are all kind of valued around the same with that Buffalo receiver core, because no one's really been emerged as the number one, right? A lot like the Packers in previous years. You don't know who the solid number one is, right? You just don't know. So if you take a flyer on a Buffalo wide receiver, he was good as a Charger. I had to watch him twice a year, and he scorched my Broncos quite a few times. So I know what his upside can be. It's just how much more upside is Josh Allen going to be over Herbert? And, is he going to be that guy? This is the question.
Yeah. I mean, a guy I like here later on, is Zach Ertz. If you haven't gotten a backup, tight end, then Zach Ertz is a solid backup. He was a good target last year for the rookie Jalen Hurts. I don't see why, even with Debo added in, I don't know if that production is going to decrease more than a few hundred yards. So you're probably looking at a guy who's going to get you 40 yards a game, and possibly 6 touchdowns over the season.
Yep. And then here in the middle of the 12th, going towards the end, I have Cedric Tillman. I have Tyler Algier. I got Michael Penix, and I got Bryce Young. So if you have not gotten your quarterback and you're starting to panic a little bit, we're in the 12th round. You might as well pull one of these guys. I like Michael Penix this year. I'm a high on Michael Penix this year. And if I've waited this long, and I've stacked my team this much where I'm getting a quarterback in the 12th round, I think I'm a little more confident in Michael Penix, but Bryce Young isn't horrible either. I have Bryce Young as a backup quarterback in the league that I drafted last night. So, I mean, I don't hate these guys. It's just they're not the top tier guys, obviously.
Yeah, obviously. And you're talking about guys like Tua in this position as well.
Yeah.
I know that last year in my one fantasy league, I drafted Matthew Stafford and then Jared Goff back to back because I waited this far in the draft to get them.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
You can find value if you know what you want.
Yep. All right, Otis, that's really all I got. We've covered rounds 7 through 12. I mean, I just hope everyone out there, goes in with a good strategy, sticks with it. Any advice you can give the viewers, and then I'll give my 2 cents.
Yep. So a couple of guys that we didn't hit on yet, but I like Bashaw Tutin from the Jacksonville backfield, as we talked about before. I think he's a guy that you could possibly get later on. I also like DJ Giddens in the Indianapolis backfield, rookie running back. And one of the teams that I targeted for defense was the Houston Texans. They play in the AFC South. That I love DeMeco Ryans, obviously a former 49er defensive coordinator. And then kickers, right? We talked about this last week, right? If you're going to draft a kicker, I have 2 rules, okay? 1, it's a Denver kicker. Obviously, the thinner air allows for the ball to travel more. The second rule, you pick a dome kicker, right? There's a controlled environment when you get a dome kicker. So, if you can get somebody in the AFC South like a Young Wei Koo, right? He's a guy who plays in another dome in his division. I talked about Brandon Aubrey. They close the roof sometimes in Dallas. Minnesota is another one where they play in Denver. They play in Minnesota, and they also play in Detroit. So those are some things that you could look at later on.
Especially when bad weather comes around and if they're kicking in the snow, the rain, it's not bad to have a dome kicker. I really like that, Otis. Until you brought it to my attention, I never really thought about that. It's huge to have that advantage.
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing is that, like, most people are going for a Harrison Butker because they feel like the offense is going to produce, where you may want to actually pick a guy, like a Chris Boswell, whose offense struggles enough that they can't get into the end zone often, but they're in field goal range. And if he's accurate, then you're looking at a guy that can score you some points.
And that's who I drafted last night with my very last pick last night.
Yeah. Like I said, if you don't get Aubrey or Chris Boswell, maybe even Jake Bates from the Detroit Lions, most of the time you can wait till the last round and pick a kicker. Everyone's going to do it. So if you want to do it the round before last, if you have 17 players or 18, how many ever you got, you want to do it the round before that, then by all means.
And a lot of people are high on that Jacksonville kicker because he's been booming him.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, if you want to take a flyer on a kicker, it's not too much of a risk, Yeah,
and the other guy that we didn't mention when we mentioned it earlier was Brenton Strange. I like Brenton Strange out of that Jacksonville offense. Luke Farrell got traded to the 49ers this offseason. And the last guy that you could possibly take a flyer on if you want, especially if you're in a keeper league, you could draft Cameron Ward. I think that Cameron Ward could be a kid who will get some early looks much faster than the other guys that are in this draft class for the quarterback position.
Yeah, I like that. Good luck to everybody drafting. Good luck this weekend. And season's here, man. We got the kickoff. We got Cowboys, Eagles. Another big game I'm looking forward to is that Baltimore, the Buffalo Bills game. That's going to be an awesome game to watch too. So a lot of good football coming up.
Yeah, absolutely. If you guys haven't mocked and you have a draft tomorrow, mock 4 or 5 times. I can't say it enough. If you haven't done that already, that is really going to prepare you for success in your draft.
All right, Otis. It's always good talking football with you. I really enjoy it, man.
Absolutely. A-Train, good luck to the Broncos and their fans. I hope that you guys take down Patrick Mahomes because he's not really friendly to the 49ers. So that would be a favor to me. But good luck to everybody in fantasy land. And hopefully you guys will draft smart and efficient.
And I'll say it one time for you. Bang, bang, Niner gang. I'll say it once just because I like you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody, for tuning into the Not Move podcast, Fantasy Football, where stats become stories.